Welcome back, everyone, to episode 23 of the Minot Business Podcast, presented by Bennett Creative Media. I'm your host, Easton Bennett, and with us today, we have another exciting guest, Denise Lindbo. Denise, how is it going today? It's good to have you on the show.
Oh, it's awesome today. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. As always, we're going to dive right into the questions. We don't want to keep people waiting. So for the people that have never met you, what do you do? What's your elevator pitch, your introduction?
I am a single mama of 2 boys. I own Gourmet Chef downtown for the past 30 years, which is crazy. And I also own High Air Ground Trampoline for the past 6.
30 years.
30 years.
Did you ever think when you were starting that it was going to be 30 years?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I started when I was 27 and yeah.
And it just kept going. You're like, wow, I'm still here.
Yep.
So what does your first business look like? So you started it 30 years ago. What was the process of, hey, let's start Gourmet Chef?
Well, I worked for a company called Coach House Gifts, which was at Dakota Square at the time as assistant manager. And they wanted to ship me out to Wyoming to open a store there. And I really didn't want to go. My mom had just had the last kid flew the coop, at home. So we kind of merged. I had the training, she had the funding, and we started looking at some different things to open. And she came across a place out of Dallas, Texas called the McClendon Company, which helps set up gourmet shops, but it's not a franchise. So it's perfect. So yeah, we just went forward.
The place that you were with in the mall, was that in the same, it was in the same industry, I guess you could say, as Gourmet Chef would be? Or
totally different.
Totally different. Okay. Yeah. So why did you decide that Gourmet Chef was the route you wanted to take?
Well, she had come across this company, which was Gourmet. I had been to Creative Kitchen in Fargo, the kitchen store there. Loved it. Mm-hmm. Loved it. Tools, gadgets, all that stuff. And so it was just a perfect mix. And Minot didn't really have a great kitchen store at that time. There was a small one at Town and Country. But yeah, we wanted a full blown.
So have you always been into the food and cooking world, or when did you really take interest in that?
I'm not a cook. I'm not a chef. I'm a manager. I went to MSU for business management, marketing. That's my niche. Mm-hmm. I hire great chefs, but I love food. I love eating. I love trying different things. I love all the fun gadgets, that kind of stuff. So, because
last week we talked to Mary Keller, and she mentioned that she wasn't necessarily in the bridal industry, and she just kind of found a gap in the market to fill. So would you say you more saw this gap in the market and then you're like, I'm going to fill that?
It's, it was kind of a combination. It was that, being at Coach House Gifts, immediately we thought of a gift store, and it's like, mine, it does not need another gift store. We've got plenty of those. So it was partly that. It was partly the passion for this type of business, from seeing the one in Fargo and seeing, just having excitement for it. Yeah. You got to get people excited. So it was kind of a combination.
So when you went to Fargo, did you go to other places to draw inspiration for the business that you were about to start, or was it kind of Fargo the main one?
Well, Fargo was the first one that we went and looked at.
Okay.
And then we traveled to Dallas, to the mart there.
Okay.
There's these huge marts set up all over that, you go in and you talk to all the vendors and get the inspiration from them as far as, what do I need to bring in that's going to sell? Yeah. That people are going to want to have.
So you mentioned that you had the business, you want to do all the managing. And did you say your mother-in-law?
My mom.
Your mom.
Yep.
So your mom had the funding. How did that partnership work? Were you guys always like, hey, let's go and do this together? Did one of you pull one of you in? How did that look?
We sat down at Applebee's one night and, they pitched the idea to me and I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. I don't want to move. I never wanted to move from Minot. I always want to stay here. So let's get something that, I can make a living. She's a go-getter. She always wants to create something and work. So she had the passion for it. And it just clicked. It just worked.
So how long into you starting this business, like after this Applebee's meeting, were you then like next day, let's fill out the paperwork, get going? Or how long was that transition period before you actually got the ball rolling after you had the idea?
Oh, it's pretty much right away. Yeah.
Which is exciting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Put in the 2 weeks at, my job, and, they weren't excited about it. They were planning on shipping me out, but yeah, it was pretty much right away.
They're like, we got to ship someone else out now.
I know, exactly. We got to train somebody else.
Yeah. So when you decided to go that route, a lot of people say don't mix family and business. What's your experience been with having a partner that's actually, your mom?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, there were times where it was touchy, I won't, hide that, but it's one of those things where we both wanted to be leaders, and that was probably the hardest thing, is we both wanted to be in control.
Yeah.
So, it lasted for about 5 years.
Okay.
And then I took it over, basically running it. And about that time is when I started thinking about having kids.
Okay.
So then she transitioned from, being in the business full time to helping me raise kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So when you're working with family, to someone that's maybe thinking about starting a business, or someone approached them to start a business, their family, what would be your best piece of advice to them to how to navigate that landscape between working with family?
Is definitely have your jobs lined up. I'm going to be in control of this. You're going to take care of that. And then let's meet together.
Okay.
I'm not going to step on your toes if you're taking care of this portion of the business, because I have to focus on this.
Yeah.
So as long as we have our jobs lined out as far as what we're going to do and contribute to the business, have that lined up ahead of time.
And did you try to keep things in the workplace as much as possible instead of taking them and, you guys are at Christmas or something and you're like, you got to be doing this, or you got to be doing that. Did you try to keep it mainly, between that 9 to 5? Obviously entrepreneurs don't work 9 to 5, but.
Right. We tried to, and it's not like we, didn't get along. We got along great. We both had a passion for it. We both loved what we were doing. We were both interested in, for sure making it work. But yeah, you get together and, you try not to talk about business, at Christmas time, but it always
comes up.
You just do it.
So in the beginning, obviously starting business is a risk. Were there any, not nightmare stories, but in the beginning where you had some question marks like, oh man, is this going to work?
You always do.
Yep.
Especially in a small business, and especially where you have to have a lot of inventory to start with. You're paying for your fixtures, you're paying for your product, you're paying for your bags, your advertising. So you've got so much going into it. And it took us, about 5 years to break even, because we wanted to start small.
Yeah.
We didn't want to spend huge amounts of money in a great big location and then just have all that added stress.
Yeah.
So we started really small, about 400 square feet.
Okay.
It was tiny.
Really?
Yeah.
And where was that location at? Was that downtown still?
Yep. It was in the same building.
Okay. You just didn't have the whole space.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
So I want to go back a little bit. You said, you went to school for business. Were you always business minded? Did you always think I want to start a business one day? I just don't know what it's going to be. Or when did the business ownership idea kind of formulate in your head?
It was when we had that conversation. I was at a point in my life where I really didn't know what exactly I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You work jobs for so long and then you realize this isn't really what I do for the rest of my life. So
I'm bored of this.
Yeah. Yeah. But working in management and that for the last 30 plus years, I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
So excuse me, I got a little something in my throat there. So when you started your business, did you have someone that was mentoring you through the business process, or did you just use what you had and experience at that time? Did you have someone giving you pointers here and there?
I did. Both my mom and I did. We had this company called the McClendon Company from Dallas, which helped set us up. They helped immensely. They came up for our open house. They, got us going. They, kind of helped us with all the startup process.
Okay.
The information I learned at college. My mom herself, she's number one in customer service. Oh my gosh.
Because was this her first business venture too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, she was a stay-at-home mom, for 4 kids, and so that was her job. I mean, and that's a job.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, learning from her on how to be a good person, learning compassion and learning how to help people all the time. And then my stepdad, he's the number one financial whiz in my life.
That's awesome.
He's amazing. Yeah.
And usually a lot of people, we talked about this in the last episode too, but people think they need these mentors. It's like, oh, I need this business guru. But really, it's most of the time it's just family and friends that are really pushing you to do something. Did you have that inner circle? I know you mentioned your stepdad and your mom. Obviously, you guys are all going through that. But did you have anyone outside in that inner circle that was really pushing you to take that next step every day?
You kind of push yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That was my biggest push is myself. My husband at the time was, quite ambitious too, so that did help. You had, that support as far as like, let's go. A lot of times it's yourself, you have to, if you're an entrepreneur, if you don't push yourself, it's not going to work.
And that's something I want to dive into a little bit. A lot of people when they're starting a business, they think it's a lot of work, but they don't realize how much work it actually is.
Right.
What's your experience of how much work it actually is being a business owner?
It is a lot of work. It is. I was just talking the other day to a gentleman, Phil Newman, and he owns Mima's Meats. He's a butcher out in Berthold. And he was saying the same thing. He's like, Denise, oh my gosh. He said, I never realized owning my own business, how much work it was. Because it's 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
Even last night, 1:00 in the morning, I'm texting on my phone. Okay, these are the things I got to do tomorrow. I got to do,
Yep.
Yeah, so you don't realize it.
And a lot of people, they like to unplug at 5:00, which there's nothing wrong with that. No. But yeah, being a business owner, it's like 11 o'clock your night. You're like, oh, crap, did I forget to email that person back? It's like, I got to do that first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, but exactly.
I think a lot of people are forgiving when you go into things like that, and they know it's difficult. Other business owners know it's difficult. As far as when you started, did you ever suffer from imposter syndrome? That's something we talk about a lot on here. Like, do I really belong in the business world with all these other business people? I'm going to assume your answer is not very much because you were in that management area, but did you ever have any of those feelings?
A little bit more in the trampoline park, just because I didn't know as much about it.
Yeah.
As I did, with the store. And with the store being downtown, it's the perfect, incubator, because you have all these other business owners that are right there that you can just walk across the street and say, hey, what'd you do with this? How did you handle this? And we have a great group. There's a group of us that we meet like every Monday, with it's the event committee for the Downtown Association, but we're all in the same boat, the women are, and we just like feed off each other.
Yeah.
We just are like, okay, I couldn't wait to get here today because I just needed to be around you guys, and talk to you about, and how do you do, this came up today, what'd you do?
And it's almost like a group of people that can kind of bounce ideas off each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So one thing I've learned when starting this podcast is there are so many female business owners.
Right.
It's never something I really thought about before until I was like, I got to get business owners on the show.
Yep.
And then I started reaching out and I'm like, a lot of them are female, and I don't actually know the percentages on that, but it feels like it. So how do you feel being a female business owner in the community of Minot?
I love it. I love it. Downtown has always been majority women business owners. And like you said, people don't realize it. Somebody said that to me the other day that, it was a advertiser, and they're like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
But you go up and down the street and you just name all these women, that are business owners. And I think, when you think of a big business, I think you immediately think a man.
Guy in a suit, briefcase, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one thing I realized too when I was going through the businesses, and maybe that's just being naive on my end, but whenever I think of business, it's like, oh, you think of this guy that's just running this business and he's kind of stern a little bit. But then, you talk to all these people that are in the trenches every day running a business. I'm like, There's all different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And really it's not, I don't know. No one's ever came in here in a suit and tie and never been on the podcast. So I think that's like almost the movie narrative where people are like, oh, business owners. And I'm sure like the owner of Goldman Sachs is probably wearing a suit every day, but no, it's really cool to see, breaking that mold and having a lot of, not breaking it, but just even realizing that there are a lot of different female business owners out there.
And you really don't realize that they're the owner sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they're in there working.
Mm-hmm.
We're not always sitting back, in our big office and, that kind of stuff, but we're actually in there working it.
Yeah.
We're not just always telling somebody else.
Owner and operator. That's what I like to say.
Exactly.
There's a lot of, some owners just like to oversee and kind of do things, which is totally fine. But a lot of them are, you're in the business every single day.
Exactly.
So you mentioned downtown, you're downtown. You started in that 400 square foot area. What did the transition process look like to getting the bigger space? When did you know you needed it?
Oh, pretty much right away.
Okay.
Really, it's, we had a great opening weekend, back in 1993, way back then. But yeah, we knew right away. So after about, it was about a year and a half, we kind of busted through the wall. And if you're not familiar with our building, it's actually two buildings put together. So it was. I think
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah. So we busted through this, foot thick wall, between the buildings, and we added another 200 square foot.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, there was Bailey's Men's Store on the corner. And
gotcha.
They had just closed their doors after Christmas. And I called the landlord the next day and I'm like, that's my space.
Yeah, give me that.
I want that space. So
yeah.
We moved into there. That was about 2,500 square feet. We're in there for a while. Then about, 10 years ago when they were doing the infrastructure project downtown, I'm like, okay, we've got cooking classes, but they're really, really small, and we're constantly moving stuff around. So I knew that was a thing that was going to sustain us during all this construction and all of this stuff going on. So then I rented out the rest of the space. There was a hair salon there. We busted through the wall, built a huge kitchen back there where we could have all our cooking classes and birthday parties and private events. So that's where we're at this time.
Okay.
So right now we've got about 4,000 square feet.
Okay. I want to dive back into this, but first we're going to take 1 second to hear from our friends over at Midco. Is your business moving up and to the right? Put Midco's business technology to work for you so you never have a slow day at the office. From premium internet service, phone plans to custom private networking and advertising, they have a solution for every type of business, large or small. Get paired with an account representative to create your suite of services and make the switch with ease with dedicated business client fulfillment and support teams. No data caps, flexible contracts with month-to-month or long-term options, built-in DDoS protection, and more. Explore services and request a free consultation at midco.com/business today. Thank you, Midco, for sponsoring this episode. I'm a Midco user myself. Really been happy with all the internet services that they've provided ever since I bought my house. I think I have the gig internet. It's very fast. I need that for all this business and all these files are transferring to the cloud, and you know how the cloud gets. So thank you Midco for sponsoring this episode. Denise, let's get back into it a little bit more about downtown. So now you have this bigger space. You're running cooking classes. Were you doing the cooking classes and the different events before, right when you opened, or when did you transition to offering those services?
As soon as we moved over into where the men's store was, then we immediately started doing cooking classes over there. And
did you always have the idea, we want to do cooking classes, we just need a space for it?
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right, exactly.
So one of my favorite things is during Christmas time, downtown is just awesome. Right. And I like to walk up and go in every single business. And that's, when I go in Gourmet Chef, I love going in there during the Christmas time. Why do you think events like this are important but in the downtown community?
Oh, you have to have excitement. You have to. Kind of our motto at Gourmet Chef is we're there to educate and entertain. So we educate people by telling them about the cookware and the gadgets and the cutlery and that, but we have to entertain them. Yeah. So that's the cooking classes. That's the special events that are going on. Nowadays people, they need more stimulation than ever because there's so much around them that's pulling them. I mean, if you look at all the different events that are going on in Minot at any given weekend, in order to stay competitive, you have to entertain.
And it's almost like you get decision fatigue.
Yeah, right.
Like, what do I want to do? There's 15 things I could do this weekend. What do I want to do?
Exactly.
So really providing a good product. And if you're not doing one at all, then it's just, you're pretty much irrelevant. So I want to go back to the beginning a little bit. When you first opened your store, how did you go about getting people in on that opening weekend or day or whatever it was? I can't remember what you said.
We did a private event. So, back then we sent out our, little direct mail flyers, to family and friends, kind of have a little sneak peek.
There's no Facebook there.
There's no Facebook back then. Nope. And then after that, then we worked with our traditional advertisers, your TV, your radio, your newspaper was big, back then. So that was our media, to get people in. So, yeah.
So why do you think it's important to provide a good experience? Everyone that walks through the doors at Gourmet Chef, why do you think that's important? And how do you go about providing that?
Oh, that's how you make your everyday living. I mean, you have to treat these people not just like a person walking in the door, just like a no-name person.
Can't be transactional.
No, it has to be personal. You have to have your top-notch customer service. We just did a training last night on this at the store. My assistant manager, who's awesome at customer service, she's bubbly and happy and smiling, and that's what people want. They don't want to go into a place and there's this, person sitting behind the counter just, doesn't say anything to you, just takes your money.
You want to be welcomed almost when you come in the door.
Yeah. And then you go into a place like ours, people are passionate about food. They love food. I mean, there's nobody out there that doesn't love food.
I know I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
But they, not necessarily compassionate about cooking or baking, but they want to make the food experience fun and entertaining.
Yeah, because I know when I was cooking, a lot of times I'm like, I just got to cook so I can live. I got to eat, so I stay alive today. But then I got my own house and I started cooking more and learning actually how to cook. I took a couple cooking classes in high school, but I did remember a couple things from it. But for forever, I moved to Candleplayed Hockey. I had a billet family. They cooked for me all the time.
Yep.
So then once I was on my own and actually learning to cook, I'm like, this is actually kind of fun.
Right.
So it is a cool world to get into where a lot of people see cooking on the surface as like something a basic necessity you have to do. But once you actually get into it, it's like, man, this is kind of fun.
Right. I was even watching on Netflix last night. There's a new season on there for Drink Masters.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Good.
I'm like binging it, but they're making cocktails, but they have to know how to cook and how food works with, each other to create these amazing cocktails, mixology. And it's just I never thought about making a cocktail and having it where they have to pair it with all these different herbs and spices and all these different things. So, but fascinating to watch, and just you think about how people get excited about it and they want to try new things and they want to have that flavor and taste.
Like, what does this taste like? Yeah,
exactly.
When I was growing up in high school and in middle school, I loved the cooking shows. So Chopped, I could watch 15 episodes of Chopped in a row, sit there.
Right.
It's like, I can't make any of that, but I want to eat it all.
Yep.
But yeah, Chopped was always my favorite. And Cake Boss with Buddy Bless. I actually saw him when I was in Vegas and I was like, oh my gosh, my childhood is coming alive. I walked past one room and I looked to the left. I was like, is that Buddy the Cake Boss? And then I had to backpedal. Right. I went back and I took a picture of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has all those vending machines with the cake in it and stuff. I'm like, oh, look at that. But yeah, childhood came full circle. So I want to transition into the second business now. Yep. Higher Ground. What did it look like when you were like, hey, let's go off into this completely different realm?
My husband at the time, and his partner in his other business, we were all down in Arizona and all of us had kids and we went into a trampoline park down in Crazy Air, it's called, down in Arizona. And it was like, oh my gosh, Minot does not have one of these. We have winter, 6-7 months out of the year.
13 months of the year. It's just winter here.
Yep. So, let's do it. So came back up, worked with a company called Trampoline Park LLC.
Okay.
And they're the ones that designed the park for us. And then, it was not even a year later, opened the doors in November of 16. And here we are almost 6 years later.
So was the learning curve for that more difficult than the first business you started, Gourmet Chef? What was the learning? What are the differences?
As far as running the business, it's so similar. It really is. I mean, your main thing is staff. There's not nearly as much inventory over at the park.
Yeah.
You've got your jump socks, you've got your drinks, your food, that kind of stuff. So as far as that goes, much easier that way compared to over at the store. The store is much more inventory heavy.
Yeah.
But as far as learning all the safety things, we try very hard to make sure that, our kids are safe. I'm a mom. I don't want any kid hurt.
Yeah.
So it's the training, it's the maintenance, to make sure the trampolines are safe. We're making sure that, everything's clean. After COVID, oh my gosh, it took a while for people to be comfortable in there again, because when you think of a bunch of kids together,
I was gonna say that was probably a nightmare.
Germs. Yeah. But we were probably the cleanest place in there because just the amount of cleaning that we were doing.
Yeah. So I suppose when you're running two different businesses and they're in different industries, the core principles of running the business are the same.
Right.
So have you experienced, it's like, okay, I just got to manage these people. I may be managing them to do a different thing, but it's relatively the same process?
It really is, and I thought it'd be really different, but it's not. I mean, you have to do your advertising. You've got to train your staff. You've got to, maintain whatever inventory that you have. You have to go to your markets. You got to continually learn.
Yeah.
So every year I'll go to a convention, for the store a couple times a year, for the trampoline park a couple times a year, because you have to learn new attractions over at the trampoline park.
Yep.
You've got to find new inventory over at the store. So the basis of it is so similar, as far as how to actually run the business.
Yeah. And that's one thing you brought up, the going to different places to find different vendors, different attractions. Is that something that you would, I'm assuming, yes, would recommend to someone that's starting a business, is to go to these other places? Obviously traveling takes a little bit of money, but what do you think the importance of going to these different bigger cities, these hubs, to find different attractions and vendors?
Going to the conventions, for me, I have to. And I totally recommend for somebody going into it, even before they start, go there, talk to people, learn from them. You might have in your mind something that you think is for sure going to work. And then you go there and you talk to somebody and they're like, ew, yeah, not a good idea. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, good thing I talked to you beforehand before I spent all this money on this. But, oh yeah, definitely. It's the networking. It's talking to the other business owners, just like I do downtown with my group, is talking to the other business owners, on a higher level, to learn from them and network. And
it's all about relationships, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's huge.
That's one thing I really preach on the show, is that relationships are just so uber important. Do you have any nightmare business stories not nightmare stories, but just something like a fun story you can tell us, or something you're like, can't believe this happened?
Oh my gosh. Well, nightmare would be COVID. I mean, totally shutting down for 3 months for the trampoline park. And, you're just going, oh my gosh, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Funny stories. Oh my gosh. Dealing with the different personalities, that come into at the park. Okay. So at the park, just not even a couple months ago. So we have a gentleman come in, goes and uses our restrooms. And all of a sudden there's just water pouring out, and he's sitting in the stall, and he had torn off one of the soap dispensers, shoved it in the back of the toilet. So it's constantly running.
Yeah.
So he's just sitting in there with all this water running everywhere.
Like on the floor, just out, sweeping out the door?
Yep.
Did you
yep.
say, sir, what are you doing?
So my manager that was there, he goes running to get the mop and everything. And the guy grabs up his coats, which were on the floor, all soaked in, water. And he just walks out the door.
Needed a nice washing of his clothes.
We're all going,
all right, man.
What was that all about? Yeah.
That's
you're just shaking your head going, I couldn't have, imagined that at any given time.
That's one thing, not having a brick and mortar for myself. I don't have fun stories. I have different stories, but sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had a building that was open to the public so I could just experience some of the goofy things that are happening.
The public is amazing. Ooh. You get these quirky ones that come in and you're trying to figure them out.
Makes you scratch your head a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why do you think it's important to have a community that supports businesses like yours?
Oh, if you don't have a community that supports you, you're not going to last very long, and that's why you have to be so gracious and so humble, that people come into your business and support you. Mm-hmm. They don't have to.
Yeah.
They can go to Walmart, they can go online. So I have to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to treat them the best that I can and give them the best experience, whether it's at the trampoline park or at, the kitchen store. We have to just be so gracious that they come in and they give us their money so we can continue to do what we do.
If you give to the community, they will give back to you most of the time, 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Have you found if there's any marketing strategies that have really worked for you, and are there any that really haven't worked for you? Just kind of, giving some advice to the people that might be starting a business or looking like, how, man, I'm struggling with marketing. What have you found to be successful?
It's transitioned so much over the years. Like I said, when we first started, it was all about, TV and radio and all that stuff. I still believe highly in radio. It's hard to get the right mix, because there's so many options out there. I still do some midco, for the store on the food channel. Mm-hmm. That's a definite niche. But otherwise, it's trying to figure out who your market is.
Yeah.
Okay. So for my market at Higher Ground, it's kids. It's kids like 5 to 12 is my huge market. But I have to get to those parents.
Yeah.
So instead of advertising right to those kids, I have to get mom and grandma and, dad involved. Mm-hmm. So there it's the Facebook, the Instagram, some TikTok, because some kid is going to be watching TikTok and say, oh, geez, I got to go try that flip. Mm-hmm. So it's just finding the right, it's so technical these days compared to what it was before. Yeah.
Before, I'm sure it's just like kind of throw it there and then you're good. But now there's so many different options.
Oh my gosh.
You really have to reverse engineer who your target demographic is and work backwards from that. Like you said, even if the 5 to 12-year-olds are the main people coming to the park, well, they're not, how many 5-year-olds are sitting on their phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do they have money? No, they don't. So you have to figure out, okay, well, who's going to be bringing them there? And then you go for the parents, grandmas, friends, that kind of thing. But no, you really have to reverse engineer it. How are you looking to grow the business day after day?
I always
both of them.
Yeah. I always compare against last year. Okay, how am I doing compared to last year? Mm-hmm. And 2020, I just kind of push out of the way. So I compare to like 2019. Okay. So I always try to bring in some new product, bring in some new ideas. Like just watching this show, Drink Master. Okay. Yep. I know other people are going to be excited about it. Okay. So now I have to make sure we just got in the smoking guns, for doing the smoked drinks and that kind of stuff. Okay. I'm going to have to make sure that I have more cookbooks and that kind of stuff so people can make these amazing drinks at home. Yeah. For the park. I've got some big competition coming in. I've got the Discovery Center opening and I've got Tilt Arcade opening. Okay. I'm going to have to focus on doing what I do best over there is the trampolines. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not going to be able to compete with the arcades that they have at Tilt. Yeah. It's It's huge.
Because they're so niche, they're going strictly that direction.
Yeah. They're actually competing against like 4 different businesses in town.
Okay.
Because they're going to have bowling. They're going to have neon putt.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Mini golf. Yep.
Mini golf. They're going to have the arcades. So they're that niche, that 5 to 12-year-old is going to have these 2 other entities, to have birthday parties and that kind of stuff at. Yeah. So then you have to think, oh, okay, now I have to think about what can I bring in that they're not going to have. I have to improve my place so I keep up.
That pulls people back over in your direction.
Right.
And competition's difficult to deal with. How is there anything that, do you kind of just focus on do what you're good at really good and then not worry about the competition as much? Or how do you go about dealing with competition?
It kind of depends on what the competition is. You know, for a while I've been trying to find all these new things and bring in a whole bunch of new stuff. Yep. Well, when I've got a big competition like that coming in, okay, maybe I need to focus a little bit more on what I do best. Yeah. Maybe not try to bring in all kinds of arcades because I'm not going to be able to compete.
You can't out arcade them.
Right. Exactly. But they don't have trampolines. I have trampolines. So let's gear up my trampolines. Let's put in some new ones, some different ones. I just put in like a new, it's called a Freedom Climber. It's a rotating climbing wall. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a huge workout. Oh my gosh, you're on there for 2 minutes and you were
like, no, thank you, I'm done. No more.
But the kids love it. The kids love it. And I know they're not going to have that. So I might have to like pull in because my brain's constantly thinking about different stuff. So,
but no, that's good. Just do, what you're really good at doing and it should work out in the end. Only a couple, actually probably last question here for you. Mount Rushmore business advice, top 4 pieces of advice for Joe Schmo that's just starting a business tomorrow.
Starting a business tomorrow. Network. Definitely network. Talk to people. Do your budget. Do your budget because you're going to be surprised at things that you didn't think about that you're going to have to spend money on.
Oh, yeah.
Love your employees. That's the one thing. It can be your biggest headache, but it's your biggest asset is your employees. If you've got employees, love them, treat them well, treat them like people, do what you can for them. And then, oh my gosh, me writing stuff down. I have notes everywhere. I have notebooks. I have to write everything down because I've got so much going on in my head. Yep. And you're constantly thinking of things. I have to write everything down.
So easy to forget.
Yeah. My son, he owns his own business too. And he uses his phone all the time. Oh yeah. I have to have it in front of me all the time.
I like pen and paper too. I just started doing this. It's called like a brain dump and it's pretty much either the night before or the day of. Everything that's in your head, you dump it in this one column. Right. And then at the bottom, there's like 3 main tasks. It's like, okay, these are the 3 things I have to get done today. And then there's a list of secondary tasks up top. If you got extra time, you do those. But once I started doing that, I started remembering more things that I needed to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's times when you got so much and you don't write it down. You're like, oh God, I got so much on my plate. Then you forget something. But yeah, just writing it down really helps.
Oh, it's huge. Huge.
Where can people find you online? I'm going to link everything below in the description, but where can they find you?
Find me on Facebook, both places. Find me website, gchef.com for the store, highairground.com for the park. And then, give us a call.
And then stop in.
Yeah, definitely stop in.
Yeah, stop in at Higher Ground, a gourmet chef downtown. Higher Ground is over there on 4th Avenue. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate the conversation. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit from Denise. If you guys really like this episode, leave a rating, review, share it with a friend, share it with your mom. I don't know. Share it with somebody. That is episode 23 of the Minot Business Podcast. We will see you guys next week for episode 24.